at you with a video you guys have been requesting for the last few days. So you guys have been had a lot of people ask me about my thoughts on the Venom movie. Now, obviously, as you know from the videos on the channel, I am a massive Venom fan, and I've done quite a few videos on the Venom movie leading up to its release. Now, we do know, of course, that the film hasn't had the best reaction from critics, and fan reviews have been pretty mixed as well. Now, I want to tell you guys, of course, that this review is going to be from the perspective of a Venom fanatic like myself, and rather than a more critical view of the film, as a lot of the reviews, official reviewers out there that you have seen. I wanted to say that after I saw the movie on Thursday, I did venture home, and while I was on my way home, I did decide to, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna read the reviews, and some of them were pretty freaking hilarious. Like, one comment I remember reading was that the film was too comic-y. I mean, yeah. Another review said the film was felt like it belonged in 2003. I mean, what kind of comment is that? So, we need to address some groundwork about the movie first. First off, it is a movie completely centered around Eddie Brock and the Venom symbiote, and does not have any references to Peter Parker or Spider-Man at all. Therefore, they have to meddle with the origin story of how they bond a little bit differently. However, I will say that the way they do Eddie Brock's origin is pretty cool. They do have nice ways, they do spend a decent amount of time introducing Eddie, his family, and all the major characters and stuff that's around him before he eventually gets his, fall, and it turns him a bit crazy and stuff like that. And it's also like a really good reference to what happened to him in the comics. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it does a decent enough job. They pretty much keep his origin as close to the comic as they can, and that's, really cool, considering how people were worried that, oh, it's not going to have Spider-Man, you can't have Venom without Spider-Man, and they actually do a pretty good job. Now, they do mess with the origins of the symbiote a little bit, in the sense that it doesn't first bond with Spider-Man. Obviously, it does come to Earth, but, they still keep the origins of the planet of the symbiotes, like Clintar and stuff like that. They change a little bit of the symbiote goals, and the little things like they mention how that, the Venom symbiote mentions to Eddie that he's a loser on his planet, and Eddie's a loser, and it's kind of the reasons why they bond. I mean, the script is a little bit weak in some parts, but overall, the film is quite enjoyable. So I said in an earlier video I made about the Venom movie that I hoped that the film would address three major things, I believe. The first was I wanted the Eddie and the symbiote to talk to each other, and that happens quite a lot in the movie. The focus of the movie is very much on the bond of the two characters, and in that sense, it's really, accurate to the character in the comics. Sure, he doesn't have the massive spider on his chest, but you don't really notice it. There's tons of nods here to the comics. They actually, I don't really want to talk about it because it is spoiler territory. There are tons of videos out here already that came out on Friday and Saturday that completely spoil the entire movie for you guys. So there is an end credit scene which does utilize a particular character I didn't want to see utilized overall in the movie, and I'm very happy about that they didn't really use him. As well as that, there is, they actually do a pretty decent job of taking a lot of elements from the Lethal Protector comic and adapting it quite well. I mean, the villain isn't super interesting. They do have more than one symbiote. Obviously, Scream doesn't appear in the movie. That's not really a spoiler, but I thought she would. It's just Riot. They're only focusing on two characters, and the two symbiotes, and that doesn't really clog the movie. Another, especially given that one other critique I read of the movie was talking how, there isn't enough Venom. I mean, it's nearly a 2-hour movie, and I think they get the ratios pretty well. Venom, the symbiote, is in the movie for most of it, and he actually does turn into Venom for a decent portion of the movie. The CGI actually looks quite cool, and as a fan of Venom, it's you get so much fan service. They do the character so well. He looks amazing. It doesn't matter that he doesn't have the spider. He looks really, really cool. Other elements that they do really well is, the way that they're able to have the symbiotes move, sure, it's a thing of goop, but, it looks really cool the way they have it moving on the glass and everything like that. They have some really cool references. One I can't really talk about because it's major spoiler territory, and then of course we'll get to the comic book in a minute. But overall, I think the weakest part of the movie is definitely the first like 20 minutes or so. The introduction of where they have the symbiotes crash and they have, the reference to John Jameson, which is a nice nod. Of course, if you've read the comics, you know who John Jameson is. It feels very out of place with the rest of the movie, especially as it has like a massive 6 months later jump. Like when you see the movie, you'll notice that it feels kind of weird. The rest of it does flow really well. A lot of people told me that they didn't really like the way that they spent so much time on Eddie Brock specifically, but I mean, you have to. This is his movie. He is the most important character in this film, except, the Venom symbiote, and they give him a nice amount of time, and Tom Hardy does a decent job of playing this guy. You do believe that this guy is a kind of, reporter, that he really wants to get that big scoop. They do a really interesting way of, showing Eddie as a real investigative journalist with his very unique show. They have nice references all out, and there's a really cool reference if you're a fan of the 90s Venom comics that I literally lost my shit when that character showed up. So if you're like me and you love Venom, you'll definitely love this movie. You have to be willing to let some things go. I know there are tons of Venom fans out there who are literally going to be like, who needs to be exactly like he was in the comic? You can't have that because they couldn't have Spider-Man. But, given that they didn't have Spider-Man, they did a fantastic job of creating an amazing Venom movie. Sure, it's not the best comic book movie out there, and it's not your average comic book movie either. It's quite dark. It pushes its PG-13 rating like you wouldn't believe. Like, oh, the movie was meant to be R. I mean, sure. There's a reason why they didn't do that, because they want to put Spider-Man in a future movie, and that's perfectly fine, because Venom is one of Spider-Man's arch enemies. Of course you want to have that, and I'm okay with that. I mean, the necessity of, let's have all superhero movies be rated R now, because we can, because Deadpool. I mean, in my opinion, the Venom movie is a far better movie than the first Deadpool movie. And it does a fantastic job of utilizing its PG-13 rating and being as dark as it can be. However, I will say its sequel, given who its villain is set up to be, if it does I do feel like its sequel will need a much more darker rating, and potentially an MAR rating, just because of the way the character they're using actually is. He's a much more violent character, so obviously, I think if they were going to use that character in the first movie, it should have been given an R rating, but because they didn't, they used a little less violent of a character. That's fine, but definitely the second movie has to be R. There's no way to escape that. Anyway, guys, if you go to a specific cinema in Australia, I believe was Hoyt's, on the opening weekend, you would receive one of these exclusive Venom comics, and it was free, and that's pretty cool. Much better collectible than those little tins that you get for popcorn tins. Now, I want to stress this: if you're going to a cinema that still has these, I cannot stress enough, do not read this book until you have seen the movie. So my friend actually had a look at it at the end of the movie, and we saw, like the little teaser cameo I was talking about before. That character does actually appear in this book, because it's basically just, like, I can show you the first page, because, it's, just some stuff from scenes from the movie. So, yeah, it doesn't really spoil anything. It is basically just a retelling of a bunch of scenes from the movie, but it's still a really nice collectible. I don't think it's a full 22-page book, but it's still nice. But yeah, definitely do not read this book until you've seen the movie. But again, it's still a really nice collectible, and the back is really nice as well. But overall, guys, if you love Venom and you're willing to turn your brain off for literally 2 hours, you're going to have so much fun with this movie. Do not take this film super seriously. You could tell that the filmmakers, they were having fun. Everyone involved with this movie was just here to have a good time and make an enjoyable action movie. Not, it's a nice throwback to those old action movies where the plot is absolute garbage, but the action is there and you just have a lot of fun. So if you're willing to go into this and just turn your brain off and have a lot of fun and see a really cool depiction of Venom that I think is a lot better than people are giving it credit for, and this movie is definitely better than what the average person says. Do not read the reviews. Go and do not read the critical reviews. Go out and watch the film for yourself. And if you actually look hard enough, there are critique reviews that actually praise the movie. Given every limitation it had, it did a fantastic job. So definitely, guys, if you love Venom and you're willing to go have some fun, you'll definitely get some enjoyment out of this. You might not love it as much as I did, but as a Venom fanatic, I absolutely love this movie, and I am so hyped for the sequel, man. After the disappointment that was The Predator, I was so glad that this movie was so enjoyable. And that's, guess what, guys? I'm actually going to go see it again next week. So if that should tell you anything, then, you know. But again, it's just my personal opinion. I'm a Venom fan, as you can tell by the videos on my channel. You might not like it. It's definitely down to personal preference at the end of the day. But anyway, guys, I love the movie. Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to check out some of my other videos here on the channel. I'm definitely going back to do some more comic book videos very soon. I've had a massive resurgence in my interest in comic books, particularly Venom, thanks to the movie. I'm going to be doing a video featuring my top 5 Venom stories, so you guys should check out for that very soon. If you like the stuff I'm doing on the channel, please make sure to like and subscribe. Leave some comments below with your own thoughts on the Venom movie, preferably as constructive as possible. We want this movie to get a sequel because, you know, Sony tried to make this movie for 11 years, and given everything that they had going, you know, against them, they did a fantastic job. But anyway, guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you for my next video.